Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Innovation Saves Lives with your host, Leonard Kim, and our special guest for today, Will Weise, DVM. Will's been working as a veterinarian for an extremely long time and has been making a lot of moves in the endangerment species area. And before we kind of get into that, I kind of wanted to ask Will a little bit about his history, what drove him into veterinary work, and why you wanted to go out there and help endangered species.
Yeah, thanks for having me here.
Of course.
Yeah, I've always been kind of an outdoorsman and just fascinated by animals in general. I actually worked for about a year for Wyoming Game and Fish Department. That was my first job out
Fun.
of uh, out of school. Yeah, and I did that for a while as a fish biologist, and then I decided I wanted to, kind of further my education. So I went to veterinary school in Texas, and so yeah, I've always just really loved science. There's so many fascinating things out there in our world to learn and to study, and I've always loved animals.
Yeah.
So I just kind of combined the two
Nice.
and became a veterinarian, and yeah, I mostly work on wildlife now, which has always been an interest and passion of mine.
Awesome. And lately, you've been working with the endangered bongo antelope, and I heard there's like maybe 100 of them left.
Yeah, depending on which survey you use, there's somewhere around 100 to maybe 140
Hmm.
in Kenya, and they're kind of a very fragmented population of animals there,
Yeah.
and they're super susceptible to extinction.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's the animal I've been kind of focusing on the past few years.
So it kind of takes a lot to really get an animal down to the point of where they're almost extinct. What kind of circumstances kind of occurred for these bongo antelope to have about 140 or less of them to be in existence?
Yeah, so it comes down mostly to habitat loss. Logging is a big thing, and also poaching
Mm.
in that area. Um, so yeah, it mostly comes down to there's just not much habitat there for them. But the good news is there's some organizations that have come in and kind of supporting efforts to help the bongo.
Yeah. And when you kind of think about your role in going out there and helping them emerge out of being an endangered species, could you kind of talk more about that?
Yeah, so I I my practice is mostly based on animal reproduction,
Yeah.
which is a very niche niche thing. I've always been fascinated by it. I tell you, when you see an embryo underneath a microscope, it almost gives you chills to just think of that animal growing into a full size animal. It's really fascinating.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so the project we've been working on, there was some researchers in the 80s that proved that the eland antelope, which is closely related to the bongo antelope, can actually be a surrogate
Hmm.
for the bongo. Um, they basically proved that you could put an embryo in a bongo embryo, implant it into an antelope, and the eland can deliver a bongo.
Oh, wow.
So it's amazing that that is actually a possibility. So that's what we've been working on. Like I said, they kind of proved that concept in the mid '80s,
Yeah.
and then we've kind of taken it back up. And yeah, so what we've been doing is we have been taking embryos from bongos
Yeah.
and putting them into eland, and yeah, we had a successful birth not too long ago
Oh, wow.
um, of a baby bongo from an eland, which is let me tell you, it's really unbelievable to watch one species give birth to a completely different species.
That's
It
kind of
really,
crazy.
it really is. It really throws your mind for a loop. It's your brain almost just doesn't want to comprehend it.
Yeah.
So that's the project we've been working on, and it's important for conservation because a bongo female can only have one baby per year.
Oh wow.
That's kind of their limit. They have
Yeah.
one baby. Um, Using these technologies, we can produce many embryos from one bongo
Yeah.
female, and then implant them into surrogates so that instead of having one baby per year, we're having like 10, 20, 30. So we can really, really increase population size really
Yeah.
quickly. So that's the idea behind it. Um, Admittedly, we have a long way to go before we get there.
Yeah.
But we're getting sort of more efficient in creating embryos every time we do the procedure.
That's kind of
So
crazy. You can
yeah,
like theoretically double the population in like 5 years. Yeah.
you could absolutely. And furthermore, you could freeze these embryos, which we
Yeah.
started doing studies on freezing these embryos. And the embryos, as far as we know, survive almost indefinitely. So let's say there is an extinction event, there's
Yeah.
some catastrophic event that wipes these bongos, unfortunately to extinction. Well, if we can freeze embryos, we can even 50, 75, 100 years from now thaw those embryos and implant them into surrogates, and potentially bring back the antelope, or bring in genetics that might not be in existing populations. So yeah, it's pretty fun stuff.
That's pretty cool. I wonder, I'm so curious, like how someone's able to go out there and in the 80s figure out that a bongo could come out of a different type of antelope. I wonder
It,
how that gets even like tossed out as an idea, how that gets proven. Like I'm so curious about this.
it's mind blowing, actually. Yeah, I have to. Dr. Earl Pope, who we named the our baby, our
Yeah.
bongo baby after. He was one of the early ones to do it, along with Dr. Betsy Dresser. They did a lot of the early studies proving that it was possible, and I will say I am very suspicious because I do think there's quite a few other species we could do these with.
Probably.
Um, yeah, so I would love. I mean, there's a many lifetimes worth of research you could do on this topic, and kind of find all the little nuances that sort of make one animal able to carry a pregnancy of another.
Yeah.
So that's, I mean, to me, that is just absolutely fascinating. But yeah, it could be used for a lot of different purposes, and I think for a lot of different animals as well.
That's absolutely amazing. So you've been in
Yeah.
the reproductive field for a while. How long have you been doing that for, and what type of animals have you worked with?
Yeah, so I've been doing it for about 10 years. And I've worked on, I mean, almost anything you can name.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been pretty fortunate in my career. We've done work on lot of wildlife
Yeah.
species. So that's what people mostly kind of get me involved to do. So all sorts of deer and elk, the African animals. We've worked on zebras and giraffes, all sorts of antelope. So it's a pretty diverse collection of animals I've
Yeah.
been fortunate enough to work on.
That's kind of awesome.
Yeah,
When you first saw the bongo come out of the other antelope, like,
yeah,
can you kind of describe what everyone's reaction was like?
yeah, yeah. So, um, well, first of all, let me tell you, the we expected. So the bongo gestation is 285 days,
Yeah.
and the eland gestation is a little bit shorter. It's 275 days. So our baby bongo was born at 292 days, so it was born about a week late.
Yeah.
So I had been sitting at this ranch watching this female, sort of in every. I watched her on cameras. I sat there with binoculars watching her. So I was just very anxious. I knew she was going to give birth at any moment. But yeah, she eventually went into labor, on kind of a normal morning, and my first my first sort of thought when the baby kind of came out was, oh wow, that really is a bongo coming out of this other antelope. It's like it almost is like, did we really just do that? Like, that was my kind of initial reaction. Yeah, and my other initial reaction is, wow, this baby is huge.
Yeah.
It was a really big baby. The baby was about, the size of a 1 month old
Oh wow.
baby bongo. So a lot bigger, and I don't know if that's due to maybe longer gestation, or maybe because just had more room in the womb.
Could be.
Could be. I don't know, and hopefully one day we will be able to know that.
Yeah.
But yeah, big baby, and the mom just took this baby bongo as her own.
Nice.
She licked the animal and licked it clean. And was very. I mean, you couldn't ask for a better mother. She protects this little baby, and just treats it as her own. And it's amazing how nature works that way. Because
Yeah.
that was one question that we had was, I mean, is the mother even going to accept this baby?
Yeah.
And she did. It's amazing. She nurses it, and they tuck the babies away to kind of hide them from predators.
Yeah.
So she was kind of tucking the baby away in brush, and coming back and nursing it. So yeah, it almost gives me chills thinking about it, because it's really special.
Yeah.
To see an eland nurse another species like that.
Yeah, that's kind of amazing. Like, I don't think I've ever heard of a situation like that, and I think this is pretty groundbreaking if you really think about it, because you're able to come here. If you do this more and get the systems right, you could repopulate this entire population of bongos, which is really amazing.
Yeah, I think it has incredible capabilities, and look, there have been some like repatriation efforts to send like zoo bongo back to Kenya.
Yeah.
And the reality is, it's just hard to send animals,
Yeah.
full grown, 500-pound animals to another country.
Yeah.
So we can take embryos and transport them, very easily.
Yeah.
So I think the ability to help in conservation is huge. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about transport, putting a 500-pound animal on a plane, a helicopter, a boat, all of those could be problematic. And if the animal freaks out, there could be a lot of problems. Embryos are tiny, so it really makes it a lot easier if you really think about it.
Yeah, we just freeze them and have them in a little tank you can carry in one hand. So yeah, transporting animals is absolutely it's stressful for them.
Yeah. So. And I think another amazing thing is what you kind of mentioned is how long you can freeze an embryo and still be able to birth a baby out of it, because that's a long time. I think I heard on the news recently while I was going through like Instagram or Meta or something, was like there was an animal that was thought to be extinct, and it was just rediscovered after like a few thousand years out of nowhere.
Yeah.
I'm like, was that frozen?
I love seeing articles like that. It really shows us how, like, we live on this planet, and it just seems like we don't know all of its secrets yet.
Yeah.
There's so much more to learn, and that's what's so fascinating about science and about conservation and animals and all this whole thing. But,
yeah, it's kind of crazy. Like, it's a really long time you could re-emerge an animal from.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I know, and the technology hasn't been around long enough for us to know how long you could freeze an embryo
yeah,
for, but certainly for several decades.
yeah.
Yeah. So,
That's pretty amazing. So
yeah.
I would assume that your next few years are going to be in repopulating the bongo population, but were there any other things that you were planning on for the next few years as well?
Yeah, so the main objective over the next few years is to really get this so where it's like down, down to a science, so to
Yeah,
speak, to where we can take a female and collect embryos from her and put those into surrogates and have high success rates on pregnancy rates.
yeah,
Um, it's one of those things where there's just some little nuances that we need to work out,
yeah,
and unfortunately, a lot of this has to just be done by trial and error.
yeah.
So we have to go in and really um, just almost trial and error to kind of pinpoint down the issues with it. But yeah, it's I think the next few years are going to be really exciting.
I think
Yeah.
so too, especially as you kind of get all those nuances cleared up, and
Yeah.
then next thing you know, like you could have 1,000 bongos. Like, who knows? Maybe in this decade, like it could potentially happen.
It absolutely could. It
Yeah,
absolutely could. Yeah, the surrogates that we use, they're called common eland because they are pretty common. They're
yeah,
they're not endangered, and they're in a lot of zoos and private collections in the U.S. So
yeah,
there's plenty of them we could use for surrogates. Yep.
yeah. I think that's amazing. You know how sometimes, so if you have the embryo and
Hmm.
then it goes into a common antelope, is it
Uh-huh.
still possible for a common antelope to come out as well?
No, there's they the way it works is when you have an embryo and you implant it, they have to be at a certain part of their cycle.
Hmm?
The basically the timing, the age of the embryo has to be timed up for the age of the cycle of the antelope you're putting it in.
Yeah.
And there's just no way for that animal to already have like a pregnancy, um, so that you would have like both to come out.
Yeah.
The only thing I could think of where that would be a possibility is if you put a bongo embryo and an eland embryo into one
Yeah.
at the same time, which might be kind of dangerous. They're not meant to have two babies at once.
I can see
So
that.
yeah,
Sorry for all the questions. This is fascinating to me. I'm just
no,
like, how
yeah,
does this all work?
yeah.
Yeah. When, how are you guys kind of funding this? Is the government funding you, or special projects funding you, or where are you kind of getting the money from?
No, so I have to mention Brent Teeter. He's been a really good friend of ours and a partner. He's a businessman from the DFW area, and
Yeah.
he's actually been sponsoring
Oh wow.
this program, on his own.
Yeah.
I kind of came with him with another veterinarian a few years ago and proposed this project to him, and he's been really helpful. So if you're listening out there and you are, a conservation organization and you would like to help us with these efforts, please get in contact with me. We would love some outside help with funding of this project.
So, if anyone wants to contact you, your website's deervetx.com. Is that correct?
It's yeah. So I do a lot of work on whitetail deer, but
Yeah.
my website is deervettx.com. TX as in Texas.
Cool. And
Yep.
then, so that means you're also working out of Texas as well as overseas?
Yeah. So I'm almost exclusively out of Texas.
Yeah.
I do have some plans overseas here this summer. But yeah, most of it is done here in Texas.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, yep. We do have sort of a smaller collection of these endangered
Yeah.
species of bongo in Texas.
Oh, nice.
So we get to work on them. So yeah,
Oh,
it's
nice.
really exciting. Yeah.
So we could be regrowing the bongo population straight from Texas and bringing them back to Africa and so forth, potentially.
Correct. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. Yep. And there's actually been a couple efforts to do that out
Nice.
of organizations from Florida and transporting them to Kenya.
Nice.
Um, so yeah, that's another option. Yep.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Um, and you said you've been working on this for a few years? Like it's been like 3 or 5 years that you've been kind of working on this?
Yeah. So we've been working on it for about 3 years. Um, at first, let me tell you, it was really slow. It took us a long time to just kind of get our bearings on
Yeah.
on how to do this. Um, the good thing now is a lot of these technologies are more commonplace
Yeah.
um, than they used to be, certainly. But even in our antelope our domestic animal species, most people don't know this, but most of our dairy comes from uh, cows that are produced through embryos
Hmm.
and embryo technology, and a lot of our beef is that way too,
I see.
because we can just make the animals so much more efficient that way, produce higher milk yields and better quality meat. So we use it in domestic species as well. But there's obviously been a lot of work on the human side of things. In vitro fertilization is a lot more commonplace today than it has been in the past. So yeah, those technologies as they develop can be used for not just for humans but for animals as well.
Yeah, IBS has got pretty popular in the last decade for humans for sure, but it's
Yeah.
kind of interesting to know that it's happening for cattle and other animals as well throughout the whole animal kingdom,
Yeah.
especially in our food supply. But that kind of makes sense because if you really think about it, like you're not making millions and millions of new cows, and it has to come from somewhere. So it does make sense.
Yeah, so like for example, in the dairy field, you really only want to produce uh, offspring from, say, like the top 10%
Yeah.
of the animals. So you use these technologies on those animals, and use your less efficient animals as surrogates. So yeah, it's commonplace. Yep.
That's pretty cool. So, I mean, if you kind of think about that 3 year timeline, it almost took an entire full year for the baby to be birthed. So,
Yep.
really doing that research and R&D and figuring out how to do this in 2 years is kind of phenomenal if you really think about it.
Yeah, I think I mean I'm pretty proud of it.
Yeah.
I will say there were a lot of attempts. Um, you know, gosh, I think we produced probably 50, 60 embryos at least before we finally had one that went full term, and we did
Yeah.
have um, quite a few pregnancies at 30 and 60 days that just didn't go full term.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, we're continuing kind of the work on it. We actually just implanted about 10 more
Well,
embryos a couple weeks ago. So we'll pregnancy check those in a month or two. So hopefully we'll have some good news then.
that's
Yeah.
awesome. I'm kind of curious. When you first pitched this idea to your
hmm
partner, what
hmm
did you tell him?
So you know, I think you know yeah, I I was nervous. I knew that we could do this. I basically went up to Brent, who's funding this project, Brent Teeter, and said, "Look, here's a project that would be really, really cool if we could do this. Nobody in the world is doing this right now, and we should maybe consider it."
Yeah.
And he bet on us. That's he trusted us, and yeah, it's boy, it's been a long process. He's really stuck in there with us. It's one, in doing this kind of project, it's one of those things where you just have to keep going until you're successful.
Yeah.
Um, it's unlikely you'll have success on your first one, two, three attempts. So, yeah, it took a couple years.
Yeah.
of him trusting us, trusting the process, to get it, to get it to work. So
Well, anyone who's listening, it seems like the trial and error period's kind of mostly over because the birth was able to actually occur. So you don't have to take on that same type of risk that Brent took on when he got involved with Will.
sure,
But now
yeah,
that this is actually working, there's just a few nuances. So if anyone out here is a nature conservativist or they want to go and see this really get funded and help
yeah,
restore the endangered bongo antelope, then I think you should definitely reach out to Will. Were there
yep.
any final thoughts that you wanted to leave with our audience?
Yeah, thank you for having me. I hope I inspired some people. I get very excited talking about this stuff. So, um, I hope that I kind of, you know, was able to share my passions with, with your listeners.
I know I
I
personally
appreciate it.
really appreciate you sharing this passion and everything because you're doing some amazing work here and you really do have an innovation that's saving lives because it's going out there and helping restore the bongo antelope. And for
Yeah,
anyone who wants to reach out to Will, you can find him at dearvettx.com and reach out to him. And if you need any other reproductive needs for any other types of animals, he could probably help you with that as well.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Awesome. All right. Well, it was a pleasure, and we'll see you next time. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in for another episode of Innovation Saves Lives.
yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.